Our story begins with Hajjani and his family, and those who were going on a trip and fighting with your daughter from her, wanting the Arab market while it was there, a word from here for a word from here returned to the state. It was with its sisters, and Hajj came next to it, and an uncle here was Arab, and the world was as good as it was, and everyone was in his own situation, but suddenly, oh teacher, the coach exploded and made a scary and terrifying sound, and fighting Arab women were alone in the direction of the forest while it was there. A word from here for a word from here. At that time, the brave man got annoyed and got out of Arabic, he and Al-Hajjah, so that the couch could talk to him, while the decision was Malak. She was in Arabic with her sisters and flipped on the phone for a while. But suddenly her Arabic searchlights went off. All of them were malfunctions and the world became completely dark, and suddenly I heard the sound of a metallic need that was strongly conscious in the ground, and the sound of Jada as he was relieved of pain. And then along with Malak's phone, it also crashes and the screen crashes. God is in it, guys. The important thing is that the one who took the scouts came out of Arabic to look at her family, and in fact I found them in Arabic means, but they were afraid that they were terrified and worked hard to carry out and fight by calling for his education. Oh listen, now the sound scribbling on a piece of paper. When I enlightened the scouts on what father was, I found him unable to open a bug, and they looked behind her. At that time the girl quickly looked after her, but she did not find anyone, and when the second one was wrapped she found the sound of the animals in the forest was what appeared, and she kept calling her family a lot, but she did not find them, so she quickly returned to her sisters, and of course they were asking her what was going on. But I sat in the driver's seat, put down the keys, and tried to turn the Arabic, but nothing happened, and the Arabic did not work, nor did the lights turn on, and all I heard around her was the sound of scribbling on the paper. But then I heard the sound of scribbling on the Arabic. At that time she and the family were very nervous and did not know what do they do. The voice of the workers decreased more and more, and suddenly they found two strange organizations standing next to them talking about a big month. At that time the fire became even more subdued. All the piping stood well, but then a moment later, what? Weird. And the blood on their clothes. When I focused a little, I found that they did not have eyes at all, and even tattooed a strange cleaner with their teeth. The yellow of everything makes sure that they are never human. When I concentrated a little, I was sure that their eyes were black and there was no shadow. I arrived inside her at the time. One of them noticed her looks and smiled too and said to her, "Can we come in, sweetheart? It's cold outside and we're alone." At that time it seemed that the horrors were ripped apart by his voice, and the two dragons by two Arabians. They laughed with pleasure. He was king at that time. She grabbed her phone quickly, but they were disabled by the certificate. Somebody turned on the spotlight, so I tried to play Arabic types. And also, everything is idle and its shape is preferable locked up until the morning. Then she looked at her brothers and said to them, "No one is crying. Stay calm for a while and they will walk. Don't worry." But what was unseen about her was that when she turned her face, she found that the two goblin dragons had disappeared from the place as if they had never appeared at all. At that time I became more nervous, especially when I remembered their strange appearance, but after a while I heard the voice of the brave man telling her, let's go in, and we won't hurt you. We'll play with you for a while." At that time, the decision was insulted by those who were in trouble, especially since their voices, as it is inside Arabic and never comes from the Arabic door, and even Rabi and Muhammad are in severe. They are two stadiums of them. Then King, she opened Al Arabia's box and came out of it like this quickly, and everyone who called it around her was confused and disappointed. Suddenly she felt that the back door had opened alone. At that time she jumped, grabbed it quickly and closed it again, but this time they found Al Afbiyat in four, all of them with the same shape and heart. At that time the girl came forward and screamed, maybe someone can hear her and help her, but the idiot. When Grandpa Amael sounded a little north while he was a worker looking at her with a strange smile, and suddenly he put his hand on Al Arabia, and there was a strange wind that bore the place and all the stupidity, and the Arabia became an hour and frozen, and then she returned to her brothers and took care of her, three of them. They don't matter anything. To some extent suddenly of the power of freezing and air crickets Arabian, it began to break, and one of the elves descended under the Arabic laughing with great enthusiasm, and suddenly my friend the Arabic rises and fills in Arabic, and they want to turn it over to the ground. At that time Malak and her brothers, among those who are screaming and crying among the narrators in Arabic, are shaking them, and suddenly they hear the sound of something being broken, and the goblins are worried. Arabic with all violence on the ground, to the point that the goblin of the net was broken and the goblins flew at them, and Malak tried to protect Sham, and Umrah was looking around in fear, which she had not expected for only 4 civilians. When I found a person sitting on the ground hugging himself, I felt where he was covered, his eyes. She took off her seat and he came down, and suddenly he smiled and got up from his place. At that time the decision was made to do so with all its might. But the strange thing is that Hodaina moved and promised her grandfather without confusing him, and no blacks came out, nor did he even minimize the blow, but suddenly he sold it on the ground strangely. At that time Malak takes from her sisters who gave them from the beginning of the episode and tries to reassure them. Then I took them, and they got down from the Arabian and ran in the forest until they reached the chief doctor. At that time they found a huge Arab approaching them, so they preferred a king, crying and screaming while she was, we're happy, please help us, don't leave us." Indeed, the Arabs stopped their intentions. Before she decides to choose, she faints, lies on the floor and wakes up the next day in the hospital with her sisters, and I saw that she went to the Arab place, And unfortunately neither me nor the father nor the mother nor even any of the people she saw were king. And that's why they went and said to her, you must have imagined that we did not find anything of what you said about her, and even your car was intact and working, and of course a queen. I was shocked, especially because she is sure that the four she saw could not possibly be ordinary children of human beings. Even these people certainly had hidden chastity. They were going to kill her and her sisters. Our second story is with Nada, who decided to travel to Japan after being offered a job opportunity for 6 months with an imaginary salary, especially since she has no family, no part and no children. The important that she did the job and had a residence close to the company. As such, she had no friends. She was living her life alone. After a while, all of this changed when she began to meet a strange woman wearing a mask and always standing in the same place and at the same time that Nada went to work. The important thing is that I counted the days for a whole week. The strange woman used to stand in her place wearing the same clothes and the same everything until a moment passed at her strangely because people were passing by without noticing her, as if she did not exist. She entered a place where she was very afraid of her, especially when the moment of her strange look was as if you knew her from a long time ago. Of course Nada looked at her in surprise and did not understand anything. At night she was sleeping and dreaming of her standing there on the bed and with her strange gaze, and she would not move speaking, but she was in a strange way. On the second healthy day she fell asleep, but the weather was very cold and the balcony was put his hand on Anastasia, and there was a strange mother's Jew in like a balcony and all open and promise. Then she began to notice the stranger at the door. The girls laughed alone. The girl is going to work. I also saw her standing on the road everywhere she saw her. Of course, she didn't know who to tell me. Of course, no one will believe that she sees a strange girl everywhere, even in her dreams. But suddenly on Thursday night it was very cold and frozen, and then she returned and you walk and greet her with a guide, which is a very long job. But to some extent, I walked from another street. Freezing and but the strange thing is that the girl was standing and waiting for her. And the first time she saw her, she began to move towards her until she came to her destination and hid. She bought a mask, and the shock was on her face. It is covered on both sides. It was clear that her face had been cut before and under the cut. Laughing with great the important thing was that she finally spoke, but there were strange and incomprehensible words, and even the girl was afraid and returned the people. At that time Malak and her brothers, but the chastity did not curse her, and she moved towards her again and said the same strange words to her. What will happen then? She also did not understand what it meant, anything biography. But I came quickly when watching her, and I actually arrived at her house, and out of fear, I closed all the doors and the young people put down the clothes and the sweeper behind them, and stayed awake until 3 o'clock at night, when I heard the sound of a bang on the floor. The bang was increasing and regretting and crying as if it were being carried out with shaking them, and suddenly they heard the sound of something being broken. I entered from under the door, and it was a piece of paper with all violence got up into courage to the point that the goblin of the net was broken, and the goblins house was so quiet that I tried to protect Sham. But the next day she changed the housing which she had not expected to clean with help of businessmen. But when she entered the apartment she found it small, but she didn't care about its appearance. The important thing is that the place is a little safe. The important thing is that he put a cover on Christmas and left us on the roads working, and at 2 o'clock she was going to sleep, but she heard the sound of the car. When I found a person sitting on the ground hugging himself, I felt where he was. There was nothing else. She took off her seat, the electricity was heating up and turning on by itself, and I heard a knocking sound. The decision was made to do so. No, it was coming from inside the strange thing is that the knocking was increasing, and suddenly a scary whisper voice said, "Is something coming?" Atashishira, part of the doorknob opened and I saw the same strange amputation inside it. At that time I came and sat next to the bed, hugging herself with the blanket as they finished, and I woke up in the sunlight, but I was shocked by the injury that was on the ground and the carpet from her sister hit her full of mud. The girl said she would catch herself before she died. She booked the first plane and returned to Egypt. She did what she needed and went to the airport. I was shocked when I found her walking among the people, and the strange thing is that no one saw her or noticed her presence other. She called alone to the one who tried to ignore the issue and entered the bathroom when she found her standing behind her, and her reflection was visible in the mirrors. Suddenly she heard a terrifying and tries to reassure, and when she turned around quickly, she did not find her at all. The important thing was that she was lucky until her trip was postponed, and she stayed in the hotel. At that time, they found a huge Arab. Of course, she did not know how to sleep in a king, crying and but the difficulty remained like this. I found her standing in her room, taking off the Moscow and telling her, indeed, the Arab stopped their intentions before she At that time I regretted that I did not focus on the meaning of the words, but I focused on the wound on her face and the stupid shape of her face, which was scary, and the blood on her face. But what was strange was when she told her, yes, at that time, I found the stage smiling as if waiting for this answer. Suddenly she wakes up the next day in the hospital with her sisters, and I saw that she went to the Arab and screams under her hands from the God or the father, but I didn't care or any of the people she saw. She threw him in her face, and that's why they went and said to her, you must have imagined that we did not find anything. She laughed while she rubbed her wrist and gave her the same markers on her bug. From the extreme pain, Nada fainted. Even today she is in the hospital and I bought them asking her about what happened, but she lies to them and knows that someone assaulted her in the street, her depraved act, and of course she could not tell the truth because not in working, and of course nor would she even be able to get rid of the wound on her face, especially because she is sure that the forgery you could not possibly be have a mark, children of and it will never go away on even these people said they had hidden chastity, they were going to kill her, which by the way means I will give you a wound like me. Have you ever seen anyone who eats animal meat with great pleasure? Yes, dog meat like you look like I haven't seen it. I kept seeing it, so let me tell you I am the type who does not like gatherings, nor do your friends from our house at all, but my friend Sandy is the one who keeps us away from me a lot so that I can come to the party with her. Second after a long time I decided to travel to Japan after being offered a job opportunity for 6 months with a head and a shower, especially since she has no family, no especially since my house is not far away. The important that so I repeated walking for a while, and indeed, my friend, I started walking for a while until I found something wrong. Her voice was very loud, but I didn't care. Until a woman caught my eye sitting on the ground, heating and burning electricity on her own. As such, I didn't care and continued on my way until I felt her body movement wasn't normal. Besides, there was a smell of blood, you can imagine, but no, there was no blood in it. There's nothing to this earth other than the dismembered body like an animal being cut up and its stomach opened. But the shock remains that the woman all of this changed when she began to meet a strange woman wearing a mask and always standing in the same place and at the same time that Nana went to work. The important thing is that I counted the days for a whole week. The strange woman used to stand in her place wearing the same. She has all blood clothes. She puts some meat on the floor and eats with great pleasure, and they didn't see me for a moment that I was watching her. At that time I took off my boots and began to walk comfortably and tried to get away from her without her noticing my presence, especially since she was until a moment passed. Her strangely because people were passing by without noticing her, as if she did not exist. Unfortunately, she entered a place where she was very afraid or silent, especially when the moment of her strange look was as if you knew her from a long time ago. Of course, Nana looked at her terrifying appearance, and the flesh was still attached to her bug and blood. I had my nose, and she was looking at me angrily because I had cut her off. Enjoy it. Come back slowly, and I'm afraid you'll attack me at any time. But unfortunately she did not get up from her place with her hands dripping with blood and movement. But I greeted her and did not understand anything. At night she was sleeping and dreaming of her standing there on the bed and that she did not finish speaking. And I ran as fast as I could. I read quickly and was filled with horror and fear. Strange way on the second healthy day she fell asleep, but the weather was very cold and the balcony was also and there was a strange and her hands were all covered in blood. She preferred to run after Aya while laughing. Out of fear, I fell to the but I got up quickly and continued running, and after a long run